Happy good morning to you. I'm just sitting in the house today and trying to do a new video here. Trying to get in the habit of maybe creating a video every couple days at least and getting ready to go on a trip. So should have a lot of videos from that uh, in about a month. But trying to get used to doing these videos and honing my skills on video editing and posting them to YouTube. So anyway, if you have an interest in my rambling, then take a look. And if not, well, just catch another video. Last video, I kind of talked about doing yard work and how getting older kind of reduces the fun of doing yard work. But today I'll chat a little bit about other effects that older age will have on you. But getting ready to go on a out of country trip, and so there's things you have to do to prepare for that. So a little bit different than if you're younger. For example, of course, most of us who are my age take some kind of medications. Well, if you're going to go somewhere for 4 or 5 months out of country, generally you've got to have a documented, signed letter from your doctor, and likely a prescription as well to go along with it, signed on letterhead from your clinic or doctor's office or whatever. And occasionally they may look at that as you go through security or customs, especially if you have a bunch of bottles of medication. Not always, but it's good to have that paperwork just in case. You sure don't want to get in the security line and have something like that confiscated and then try to figure out, well, how am I going to get my medication when I get to this other location? Generally, it's fairly easy, but you could hit a snag, and if the medication is fairly critical to you, you don't want that to happen. So that's one thing you have to do, is prepare for the travel with some documentation from your doctor, prescription, just a letter that says, hey, yeah, he needs to take this, or she needs to take this, whatever. And that's about all you need. You can go to the government website, State Department, various other websites, and they'll kind of tell you what you need, and that'll help you out. So we've done this kind of travel over the last several years. At least the last 3 years, we've gone for 4 or 5 months during the year to the Philippines, and we had a good time. A lot of work on the house that we had there, but it was fun and a good trip. But the traveling part is not much fun. Flying for about 13 hours or more from LA to Taiwan, and then another 3 hours to the Philippines. That's not even counting the Southwest flight from where we live here to LA to catch the international flight. So you got to prepare for that, and prepare mentally as well as physically. So you want to make sure you're hydrated and all that kind of stuff. But you can make it easy or you can make it hard, whichever you prefer. Of course, my wife likes flying in the cheap seats, which I can understand, but sometimes I'd prefer to notch it up a level, go into the priority economy seats. Ain't likely I'm going to fly business class because the cost of that is outrageously expensive. So we'll skip on that part. But just bring comfortable attire and shoes to relax in and stretch your feet, things like that. Should mention, for us older folks, when you travel, I definitely use the compressed hosiery, I guess you'd call it, the compression leggings that help prevent blood clotting, things like that. So it's good to do that. And of course, once you're on the plane, even though you're flying for a long period of time, you've got to get up and walk around at least every hour or so, because you just can't sit there for 13 hours and it come out to be a very enjoyable ride. It's a long trip. So anyway, that's the part of that I'll mention to you. You probably already know that anyway. Of course, one of the other things we have to do is prepare the house and vehicles for our travel. And one of the things I've learned fairly recently is last time we came back, the batteries on both my vehicles were completely dead. we encouraged our sons to drive them every month or so, or at least every month and a half, whatever. But it wasn't a long enough drive to recharge the batteries enough. So I got me a trickle charger, 2 trickle chargers. And if you read up on it, generally they say those are fairly good things to have. It keeps your battery charged at a very low rate and very low hazard of anything occurring that you don't want to occur. So research that, and something you might want to consider. But you got to keep those batteries charged just to keep the vehicle healthy and to have it ready for you when you get back after those extended stays out of country. On our previous trips, I think we we hauled 4 suitcases plus our carry-ons and shoulder bags, things like that. I think this time we're going to try it with 2 suitcases and the backpack and shoulder bags. We're going to give it a shot. We may have to scrimp on items that we would typically take, but in the Philippines, of course, you can buy just about anything you need. The biggest problem is if you're a foreigner or an American that has 13 size shoes like I do, or pants and shirts that are much bigger than what a typical Filipino would wear, you have to search pretty hard in the Philippines in the malls and the stores to get the size that really fits you. So that's the only dilemma. You can find it over there. You just have to look a little harder. And I guess while I mentioned that, there are malls, for example, that the Clark Freeport zone is comparable to any indoor mall in the States. I mean, it's just a world-class mall with all kinds of restaurants, stores, and 2 or 3 levels, and all kinds of items you could ever want that are there. So you don't have to worry about that. Of course, once you get there, you got to be able to call people. And I use what's called AT&T, or used to be called AT&T Day Plan. I think they slightly renamed it, but basically, once you get on that, I can use my stateside phone. I can use my stateside phone in the Philippines just as though it were in the States. So I get my email, my text messages. People here in the States can call me anytime. It's just like they're calling me in the States. And if I want to call them, I can. If I want to call somebody in the Philippines now, of course, I have to use the international number. And I'm not sure if that adds a little bit of a charge or not, but it's convenient for me. My wife usually, well, she has already a fairly new phone, Android phone she picked up over there. So all she has to do is renew the charges for service, and that should work fine. But you definitely need a stateside phone or the ability to be able to get alerts and things from your banking, financial institutions, and just people you know. So that's kind of critical to have when you go over there. You could probably do it somehow with an international phone, but I just stick with my U.S. phone through AT&T. I'm not advertising for them. There are other services. I think T-Mobile has something similar. Consumer Cellular also has something that's sort of like that. So something to think about, because you definitely don't want to be unable to contact your banking facilities or to get those alerts when you need them. In previous trips, we went during the dry season pretty much, although on one trip it rained quite a bit, even though it wasn't rainy season. This time it's going to be during rainy season, so it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. I think I'll like it. I mean, when I'm in the dry season, it's hot, humid, and I'm sweating like crazy. So I may get wet this time, but I may not be as sweaty as I was there during the dry season. We'll see how that goes. I don't mind the rain at all. Kind of fun to sit out on our porch there and watch it rain. Most of you probably already done the same thing we have. Most of our critical utility bills and financial information, stuff like that's all done electronically now. It sure makes it easier, and my wife's always worried about hackers and scammers and all that. But if you think about it, if you're getting a paper copy in the mail to your mailbox, I suspect it's probably easier to steal that than it is most well-secured data services from your banking facilities. So that works well. I also use a virtual private network. I even use that here in the States. It helps with security a little bit. In some occasions, you have to turn it off, especially if you're working with your bank Some services don't like the VPN turned on because it knows you're using it and it's not seeing what it's used to seeing when you usually connect with them over the internet. So something to think about. Well, how much money should I take? That's an interesting question. Before, I think within the last year or two, they've changed it, but before, each person going out of the United States was allowed to take $10,000 or less. Now, you don't necessarily have to have that especially if you're going to the Philippines. But now they've changed it. From what I understand, I believe it may have changed to 10,000 per couple or per family as you go through customs or you exit the country. You can research that, and I may do that again before I leave just to make sure. But in reality, even if you take $5,000, you can easily use your international ATM cards. You might want to check with your bank or financial institution just to make sure you can do that overseas. But you can easily use ATMs over there and get out a couple $100 easily anytime you need it. If you need larger amounts, of course, you can use the old Western Union, and I think maybe even Zelle in some cases, and some other apps and processes you can use to transfer money if you need it. But be careful because they have a lot of strict anti-money laundering rules and things like that. And if you're not careful, you can get yourself into a dilemma, even though you're not a money launderer, where the algorithms think you might be a money launderer and that they can put a block on your transfers. So that's kind of ugly. And I mentioned that last issue kind of from firsthand experience. While we were there a couple years ago, we were fixing some things on the house we had there, and so we transferred more money than we typically would do. And at one point, Western Union said, hey, you can't have no more. And they would actually send you a notice, and they would say something to the effect, you may be suspected of being a possible money laundering. So it's obvious that they word it in such a way that you can't hold them legally liable. But to get out of that block requires a lot of information that I'm not willing to share with them or any other transferring institution. I mean, they wanted a heck of a lot of personal information, not only from me, but from the recipient at the other end. And we've been using them for years. So something to be careful of. Kind of research and make sure you understand how that works. And don't be transferring large amounts of money, or even, say, for example, $1,000 or $2,000 every week, because the algorithm is very likely going to detect that as some potential issue. So something to think about when you're overseas and trying to transfer money over. The thing that really irks me about that whole issue is that, of course, if you're a wealthy person in the States, or you're somebody of influence, obviously you're not going to get bothered at all. So they have, the money and means to have a cadre of lawyers that can take care of all that. But for us regular folks, it's a dilemma you have to be aware of and work around it. Not encouraging you to do anything illegal, but even if you're doing legal transfers, be careful. So we're also going through the process of getting our vaccinations if we need any. We've had our COVID, flu, RSV shots last October, I believe. So we may or may not need those. And one thing I'm finding out is that the COVID vaccinations and even flu, sometimes they're not even available until the September, October, November timeframe. So we'll see how that goes. We like to get the shots we need to prepare for a trip out of country, but we've never had a problem either way. Vaccinations are fine with us, and we've never gotten sick while we were out of country either. So kind of have to look at your own conditions and determine what's best for you. One thing we do take with us, and I won't give you a recommended brand, but you do need some kind of quality mosquito repellent when you go over there. And usually you want to get it in a relatively small bottle that is easily taken through security checkpoints, stuff like that. And you can check online to find out the best one. We did that the last couple of years. Last two trips we went. And to tell you the truth, we didn't use it very often. Where we stay, where our house is, there's not many mosquitoes, and we have a electronic mosquito zapper in the house, so that works pretty well while we're around the house. If you were going to be around standing water somewhere else, something like that, I definitely would take some quality mosquito repellent, because that's going to help prevent you getting dengue fever and some of the other ugly things that you could get in other places. Now, you may not be able to see it on my nose here. Just had some dermatology work done to zap a couple of places. Actually, I had some basal cell issues they took care of. But you definitely want to take some quality sunblock, and you have to find the one you like, but also the one that's good. I won't give you the brand name because I'm not going to recommend specific ones for specific people, but the one I've discovered that I like is, it's a brand and a type that it goes on easy, it dissolves easier. You put it on, it's initially a little bit white, but then it quickly turns to clear, and it moisturizes your skin very well. So when you get to be 70 something, that's something you have to kind of factor in. But over there, you definitely want to use sunblock just about every time you go outside, because you got to remember you're closer to the equator and the sun is out a lot now. The fact that it's rainy season, maybe it'll be less sunny than I'm thinking, but consider using sunblock. And of course, if you do get some, if you're going to carry it with you with your carry-on, remember it has to be a certain size or smaller to get through security. So consider that. Will our flights occur on time? I don't know, with all the crazy issues that are going on right now with oil deliveries and all that. Who knows? But so far, we booked several months ago, as early as we could for the international flight. And then we always fly Southwest from where we live in the States to LA, and everything's fine. The biggest problem is if you're flying on the same day from your point in the United States to get to LA for the international flight. We're going to take an early day flight, and our international flight doesn't leave until after midnight. So it gives us about a 6-hour time frame that we should be able to get there in plenty of time to catch the international flight. I would prefer to have spent the night there, but my wife doesn't like spending the night at a hotel and then having to get up again to go for your international flight, especially when you have the odd hours, because you typically have to check out of the hotel, or you're going to have to pay for another day's stay in the hotel, even though you're checking out in the late evening. So that's what we're going to do this time, and it should work fine. The last two trips it worked perfectly, so hopefully it will this time. But just remember that when you book your flights. Well, luckily we don't have any pets. I tell people I enjoy other people's pets. That way I don't have to take care of them. I'm kind of lazy about taking care of, especially dogs. They're a little bit of a work. I guess when I get older and I don't travel anymore, maybe I'll get me a cat again, because I'm a cat person. They're a little easier to take care of, but we don't have to worry about that. I'll have my sons take care of the yard work, and that should be fine, especially when you get toward the fall and winter months. Grass shouldn't be growing that much anyway, so should be no problem. The interesting thing is we have security cameras both here and at our Philippines house, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. So here in the States, we have security cameras here at the house. Works perfectly, never a problem. And 2 years ago, when next to last trip, we went to the Philippines. They weren't selling them in the States yet, but there is I'll tell you the brand, I won't recommend it. I mean, I do recommend it because I like it, but I'm not going to recommend a product to you. Just research and figure out which one you like. But it's basically called the Eufy, EUFY. At that time, they didn't sell them in the United States. Now they do, especially at Walmart and other places. But it's a solar powered camera. You can also plug it in if you need to. It has a hub that sits in your house, and it is perfect. I mean, it even has some computer programming algorithms where it can detect the people it knows and doesn't alert you and things like that. So it's a really good little camera. At the time we bought that one, it was expensive, especially in the Philippines, but it was well worth the money. And so the only thing I have to do when I go over here is, since it's solar, if it ever totally loses its charge and needs to be recharged to restart it, I'll have to take it off the pedestal outside and bring it in, hook it up to the hub with a USB cable, let it charge up fully, and then I just stick it back on there and reset it, and it'll be fine. The second one works fine over there and has for the last 2 years. So it's good to have security cameras that you can monitor wherever you're at around the world. It helps and just keeping an eye on stuff and makes it easier to not be so concerned about your house back here in the States. You can see who's coming, who's going. You can have water detectors to tell you if there's a water leak. You can control your thermostat. You can check your security system, all kinds of stuff. So it makes things a lot more secure and a little less anxiety for you being away from the house. I'll be honest with you though, the biggest, not really concern, but the saddest thing for me when we travel and stay extended period over there is missing my youngest granddaughters who are 8 and 12, and my older granddaughters who are significantly older, grandson. But with today's technology, in fact, the youngest granddaughters, they call me any time of the day or night. They don't always remember that 3 o'clock afternoon here is about 4 o'clock in the morning there, but that's okay. If they need to call me, they call me anytime. If I wake up, no problem. I'm retired. I don't have to worry about it. So that's the catch, is I'll miss them, but luckily we stay in contact and talk to each other probably at least every 2 to 3 days. So that keeps me in connection with my youngest granddaughters. And of course, my older ones can call me as well. In fact, anyone here in the States, like I said, can call on my phone number, and it's just like I'm back here at home in the States. So I use that to my advantage because it puts me at ease to know that my grandbabies are safe. Now you can go on YouTube and you can watch all kinds, hundreds if not thousands of videos on vacationing in the Philippines, retiring in the Philippines, the do's and don'ts of the Philippines. I love it over there. My wife's Filipino American. She enjoys going back, but to tell you the truth, I can adapt to the Filipino culture more easily than she can now, being Americanized. So it's kind of funny in a way, but over there, when you wake up in the morning, you go get your pandesal sweet bread, you get your coffee, maybe you pick up some bananas, fresh fruit, vegetables, whatever, just down the street a few blocks to the little street markets, and then you can go to the big market if you want. But that's what you do every morning. Get your coffee, sit out on the front porch. Your neighbors will come out. Several of the neighbors are retired as well. So I have a neighbor across the street. We talk every day. Sometimes we'll talk for 15 minutes. Sometimes we'll talk for a half an hour. Sometimes we'll talk for 2 hours. I mean, that's the way it is. And that's what part I love about the Philippines. You connect with people all day long, and no matter where you go, even with strangers, it's a very friendly culture, and you just interact with people. It's unlike here in the States. Typically, I mean, I live in Central Texas, so it's a pretty friendly part of the country. But even at that, typically, you might talk to your neighbor for 15 minutes, and then you go back in the house and sit on your butt for 2 or 3 hours or all day. That's just kind of the American culture. So it's not the healthiest way to do it, but that's the way it is. So if you really want an interactive culture and a lot of fun things to do, consider making a trip to the Philippines. It's pretty easy to do. You can go in on a 30-day visa. You don't even need a visa beforehand. Just have all your requirements. You get there, 30-day visa. As long as you're not a hoodlum, they'll typically let you in. When we go, since my wife was born in the Philippines, we go on what's called a balikbayan visa. Well, balikbayan visit. I don't know if it's technically a visa, but because she was born Filipino, it allows her and me, as long as I'm with her at the same time, to stay up for up to 1 year. So we've never stayed that long yet, but it's a very easy way for someone married to a Filipina to make the trip over there and spend a month, 2 months, 5 months, up to a year, come back to the States, you're good to go. Pretty nice way they do their tourist visas and retirement visas. Now, if you watch all the other videos, you see all the beautiful beaches, you see Makati in Manila, BGC. I mean, these are very upscale parts of the Philippines. And you can go from that to the provincial mode where it is you in the jungle with a nipa hut. I mean, it's everything in between. So there's a lot of great tourist things to see, just waterfalls and Baguio's in the mountains. So if you want to cool off, and a lot of Filipinos do this, they travel to Baguio, spend a few days there, and it may be 95 degrees Fahrenheit height down in the lowlands, and in Baguio it'll be 75, 80 degrees. So there's a lot of things to do and see, and it's a fun place. Now, where we are going, where we stay, is significantly far from the nice beaches. It takes about probably a 2 to 4 hour drive to get to a nice beach. And part of that is because they do have toll roads and nice roads, but once you get beyond those, it's a bare bones road type system in some places. Sometimes there's dirt roads. Most of them are asphalt roads and well maintained, but there are some places where you have to almost have a Jeep to get to where you want to go. So keep that in mind if you go over there. If you're young and adventurous, the place is for you. Do we drive there? Well, no, not yet. I could drive there. Being a retired military, I've driven in Saudi Arabia, Greece, Italy, quite a few different places. But if you drive in the Philippines, you have to drive like a Filipino. You can't go over there and think you're going to drive in most places like Americans drive here in the States. And in some regards, they actually drive better than us, generally speaking. In some regards, they don't. So you have to learn how you drive in the Philippines, and if you do that, you'll generally have no problems. But it does take some getting used to. So typically, if we want a cheap ride, we'll take a tricycle to the local grocery store, which is like 3 blocks away, and you might pay typically maybe 50 cents, 75 cents for the tricycle ride. Now, as Americans, we usually give them a little extra. Or if you want to go a little further distance, you can flag down a jeepney, and that's where they turn a Jeep into a little taxi with bench seats in the backs, and you got to climb up into it and give the driver the money, and then you go to where you want to go, and you tell them you want off, they let you off, you jump off. Those are cheap as well. Will take you further distance, but there's no air conditioning. It's just an open Jeep with bench seats. Typically, they are trying to modernize that whole fleet, but it will take time. And one of the problems is the jeepney drivers may own their own Jeeps, or they may work for a person that owns 2 or 3 Jeeps, and they get paid. They make more money that way than if they were in an association or something that actually owns a Jeep, and then they have to lease it, pay the leasing costs for them to drive it. So there's kind of controversy in the Philippines about how they're going to modernize all the jeepneys and still make it worth the jeepney drivers having that as a job. Having said that, there is a very easy way to get a ride in the Philippines, and that's by using Grab. Grab is kind of like Uber here in the States. Where we live, typically, if we call a Grab, or we go online to the app on our phone, request a Grab, it has made it to our house sometimes within 3 minutes, so at the most 10 or 15 minutes. It's very convenient, and you pay from the app, and so you don't have to pay the driver anything if you don't want to. I guess they would take cash maybe if you really insisted, but it's easy to pay on the app. Of course, We give them a tips. Some, I don't know if Filipinos tip them or not. I would hope they do. But you can get a Grab over there in most places, and it works great. And they'll even you can use Grab for delivering McDonald orders, Kentucky Fried Chicken orders, things like that. So it's a handy thing to have. I'm going to try it on my phone this time. I don't know how well it will work. I know it works if you have easily works if you have a Filipino phone. So we'll see how that goes. But it's a great service to use when you're in the Philippines. And in most videos that you see about the Philippines and what you have to go through if you retire there or you're visiting for an extended period, is paying your bills, paying your utility bills, things like that. And yes, it is significantly more bureaucratic than even here in the United States. And even here, it can be kind of frustrating at times. But yeah, over there, if you're gonna go yourself to pay the electric bill at the facility, at the location where you pay it, it's going to take some time and you got to be patient. And one thing in the Philippines, you do not get ugly with Filipino service folks. That will not fare you well. In fact, Filipinos do not. That's part of the culture. You do not show outward aggression toward other people in the Philippines. If you do, you're asking for trouble. So never ever do that. So you have to go through that process. They do have Gcash, which is another app where you can easily pay like phone bills, internet bills. I don't know if you can pay electric bills with it yet or not. Maybe so. I know we paid water bills with it, things like that. So Gcash is a neat app there as well. And in fact, they also use GCash kind of as a small banking type system. So you Filipinos, if they need to borrow 1,000 pesos or something, they can go to a Gcash person that has it as a business. They can loan them the money and then they pay back with a small percentage rate, the next day or the next week or however they work it. So Gcash is a good app to use there as well. So we use it to pay the bills. Do you need to speak Filipino? I know about 5 phrases, well, maybe a few more, but my brain is difficult to learn new languages. But of course, the Philippines' national language is Tagalog. But every Filipino that's 30 years or younger was very likely taught English from pre-K through college. So generally speaking, they speak fluent English. And even if they weren't in that age category, many of them will speak English pretty well. So you don't have to know a lot of Tagalog or the local dialect. For example, my wife's local dialect is Pampangan, because that's where she grew up. There's over 100 and some dialects in the Philippines. Depends on where you're at. If you're in Manila or you're in Cebu or you're in Bohol, they will speak other dialects. In fact, the funny thing is when we made a trip to Dumaguete a couple of years ago when we were there, I tried to flag down a taxi and a tricycle driver and wanted to go to a certain restaurant. I could never get him to understand where we wanted to go, even if I tried to use Tagalog or English, because his dialect was completely different, and obviously he was not a very good English speaker. So you do run into those problems. Now, if you go to some place like close to Clark, Freeport Zone, or Manila, the big cities, Cebu, you're generally going to find people that can speak English very well with no problem. So it's not something to worry about. It is a good idea to learn some of the most courteous phrases in the Philippines. One, for example, is just maraming salamat. That just means thank you very much. Or if it's an older person, maraming salamat po. Po is a sign of respect to older folks or people with authority that you would typically show respect to. Not something you need to say to everybody you run into, but if it's an older person, you add the po at the end of your phrase and you're good to go. I'll tell you another story that's interesting and kind of funny. My mother-in-law turned 101 this year. She was 100. She had her 100th birthday while we were there in, I think, 2024, I believe. 2025, maybe. Whatever. Anyway, we were at the mall, and I was relaxing with her on a seat in the mall, and kept telling me she was cold. So there was a department store next door, and I said, "Hey, Mom, let's go in there. I'm going to buy you a jacket or a sweater." So took her by the arm, and she was 100, so it was kind of a slow walk. But we went into the store, found her a sweater she liked, and we went up to the line to check out. And like a typical American, I went to the back of the line of about 10 people, and they looked at me like I was crazy. They said, "Sir, sir, sir, you go straight up front. You bypass the line." I'm kind of like, okay, I knew this occurred in the Philippines, but they show the ultimate respect to their most senior citizens. So keep that in mind. If you're an older person and you're standing in line at McDonald's, it's very common that they might say, "Sir, come on." They want you to go up front. That's how they show the respect to you and to older folks. Maybe something we could learn here. So, to give you a little background, me and my wife will have been married 50 years next January. So, we'll be married 50 years in January of 2027. I was in the Air Force in 1976, went to the Philippines, and of course, didn't take me long to find a girlfriend, and we got married in 1977. So, the Philippines back in 1976, 77 was significantly different. They were under martial law. There was a curfew of midnight. So you had to be somewhere in place by midnight. There were military folks, soldiers with automatic weapons pretty much everywhere. It's changed a lot. It's much more modernized now. You still see a lot of security at banks and some stores. Sometimes they're armed, sometimes they're not. I have never had a crime problem while I was there, but uh, it's like any place you go to. Keep your eyes open, be smart, just pay attention, and the locals will help you out. They will tell you where you should go and shouldn't go, and if you follow those suggestions, you'll be fine. So nothing to worry about. But again, anytime you travel overseas, just be aware of your surroundings and be smart. Well, I could probably ramble on for longer, but I'm going to try to fold up this video and put it together and see how it goes. And then I'll try to make more videos than I've been making. If there's something you want me to try to talk about, just let me know in the comments. And I am not trying to become a, what they call it, an influencer or anything like that. This is just Grandpa D chatting on YouTube, mostly for posterity to my grandbabies. But if you have an interest and you want to chat back and forth, I'll be happy to respond to your comments, and we'll go from there. So have a nice day, a nice week, nice year, and best wishes to all of you.